Willow Hill Manor stood tall and imposing, its once grand facade now weathered and worn by the passage of time. The ancient mansion had long been abandoned, shrouded in rumors of tragedy and malevolent spirits. As my friends and I approached the imposing iron gates that guarded the entrance to Willow Hill Manor, a sense of foreboding washed over us. The air seemed to grow colder, and the shadows cast by the towering trees danced eerily in the fading light. We pushed open the creaking gates and ventured forth, our footsteps echoing through the overgrown courtyard. The mansion loomed before us, its windows dark and lifeless, as if the very walls themselves held a secret. Entering the grand foyer, we were greeted by the musty scent of decay and the soft whisper of the wind through broken windows. The once opulent furnishings lay in ruin, covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. We split up to explore the vast expanse of the mansion, each of us drawn to different rooms by an unseen force. As I wandered through the dimly lit corridors, I felt the weight of centuries-old secrets pressing down upon me, urging me to uncover the truth. In a forgotten corner of the mansion, I stumbled upon a hidden staircase leading down into darkness. With trepidation, I descended into the depth below, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom of the staircase, I found myself in a dimly lit chamber, the walls adorned with strange symbols and arcane sigils. In the center of the room stood an ancient altar, its surface stained with dried blood. A sense of unease washed over me as I approached the altar, the air thick with a palpable sense of malevolence. I could feel eyes watching me from the shadows, unseen whispers echoing through the chamber. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering candles that lined the walls. In the darkness, I heard a soft whispering voice, barely audible yet filled with malice. I turned to flee, but something unseen grabbed hold of me, pulling me back towards the altar. I struggled against the invisible force, my heart pounding in my chest as terror gripped me. And then, with a deafening roar, the darkness was upon me. I felt a searing pain in my chest as if 1,000 needles were piercing my flesh. I screamed out in agony, the sound echoing through the empty halls of Willow Hill Manor. When I awoke, I found myself lying on the cold stone floor of the chamber, my body battered and bruised. The darkness had retreated, leaving me alone in the silent darkness. But as I stumbled to my feet and made my way back to the surface, I knew that Willow Hill Manor held secrets far darker than I could have ever imagined. Emily Parker was a young girl with a bright smile and a heart full of dreams. But when she stumbled upon an ancient tome hidden away in the attic of her family's home, her life took a dark and twisted turn. The book was bound in cracked leather, its pages filled with strange symbols and cryptic incantations. As Emily pored over the faded text, a sense of unease washed over her, but she couldn't tear her eyes away. That night, as Emily lay in bed, a strange presence filled the room. She felt a cold chill run down her spine as a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its eyes burning with a malevolent light. Emily tried to scream, to flee from the darkness that threatened to consume her, but she was paralyzed, trapped in her own body as the shadowy figure drew closer. With a guttural growl, the figure reached out its hand and touched Emily's forehead, sending a jolt of searing pain coursing through her veins. She cried out in agony, as the darkness enveloped her, her mind consumed by visions of unspeakable horror. When Emily awoke, she found herself lying on the cold stone floor of the attic, her body twisted and contorted in ways that were not human. The darkness had taken hold of her, twisting her soul and bending her will to its own. For days, Emily's family tried to help her, to break the hold that the darkness had over her, but it was no use. The demon within her raged unchecked, its fury growing with each passing moment. And then, one fateful night, the darkness within Emily exploded into violence. She attacked her family with a ferocity that was beyond human, her eyes burning with a hatred that was not her own. It took all their strength to subdue her, to bind her to her bed and call for help. But by then it was too late. Emily was lost to them, her soul consumed by the darkness that now controlled her every move. As I stood in the doorway, watching helplessly as Emily raged against her restraints, I knew that we were facing a darkness unlike anything we had ever encountered. Father Michael had dedicated his life to serving others, but when he was called upon to perform an exorcism on a young girl possessed by a demon, he knew that he was facing a battle unlike any he had ever fought before. The girl's name was Sarah, and she was just 10 years old when the darkness took hold of her. It started with strange noises in the night, whispers that seemed to echo through the walls of her family's home. But soon it became clear that something far more sinister was at play. Sarah's parents turned to Father Michael for help, desperate to save their daughter from the darkness that threatened to consume her, and so he agreed to perform the exorcism, to confront the demon head-on and banish it from Sarah's soul. As Father Michael entered the room where Sarah lay, he could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down upon him. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur, and the temperature dropped sharply as he began the ritual. The demon within Sarah fought back with a ferocity that took Father Michael by surprise. It taunted him, mocking his faith and his resolve, but he refused to back down, calling upon the power of God to banish the demon from Sarah's soul. For hours, Father Michael battled against the darkness, his voice growing hoarse as he recited prayers and incantations. Sweat dripped down his brow as he struggled to maintain his focus, to keep the demon at bay. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a miracle occurred. The demon let out a blood-curdling scream, its grip on Sarah's soul weakening with each passing moment. Father Michael pressed on, pouring every ounce of his faith into the battle. And then, in a blinding flash of light, the demon was gone. Sarah lay on the bed, pale and exhausted, but free from the darkness that had plagued her for so long. Father Michael collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he thanked God for delivering them from evil. But as he rose to his feet, Father Michael knew that the battle against darkness was far from over. The demon he had banished was merely a pawn in a much larger game, and darker forces were at work, lurking in the shadows and waiting to strike. In the days that followed, Father Michael delved deeper into the mysteries of the occult, seeking to understand the true nature of the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. He pored over ancient texts and consulted with fellow priests, searching for answers to questions that had haunted him since the exorcism. And then, one fateful night, the darkness returned with a vengeance. Father Michael was alone in his chambers when he felt it, a palpable sense of dread that filled the air like a suffocating blanket. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Father Michael knew that he was not alone. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe around him, coalescing into a sinister figure that loomed over him with eyes full of malice. In that moment, Father Michael knew that he was facing a battle for his very soul. With a prayer on his lips, he drew upon the power of his faith, banishing the darkness from his chambers and sending it fleeing into the night. But even as he emerged victorious, Father Michael knew that the darkness would return, relentless in its pursuit of chaos and destruction. And so he vowed to stand against it, to protect those who could not protect themselves, and to face whatever horrors lay ahead with unwavering resolve. As I listened to Father Michael's tale, a chill ran down my spine. I knew that the darkness he spoke of was real, lurking in the shadows, and waiting to strike when least expected. But I also knew that there were those who would stand against it, brave souls like Father Michael, who were willing to risk everything in the fight against evil. And so, as I stepped out into the night, I knew that the battle was far from over. But with faith as my shield and courage as my weapon, I was ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead, knowing that I was not alone in the fight against the darkness that threatened to consume us all.